This will be for the con exercise, find compound interest. So the formula for compound interest, A equals P times the quantity of 1 plus R over N to the power of N over T. Okay, A is the accumulation or the amount accumulated in total. P is the principal amount. That is normally the amount initially invested. R is the interest rate. N is the number of periods. And T is the time. Okay, and the units must match for R, N, and T. Now, I understand R will be in terms of percent, but it will be something like percent per year. Okay, and N is the number of periods, and it will be something like the number of periods per year. So if this is per year, this has to be per year, and the time would have to be in years. Okay, and if it's not, then you need to make adjustments, as you will see in the problems. All right, find the compound interest and the total amount after 8 years if the interest is compounded every 2 years. All right, so they want the total amount and the compound interest. All right, so the principal is P, that's the initial amount invested. Okay, I'm not sure what symbol this is. It's obviously not dollars, but this is a monetary amount. Okay, and the rate of interest is 20% per annum. That is the same as per year. All right, and 20% in terms of a decimal, if you move the decimal over 2 places, that's going to be 0.2, or you can say 0.20, and that is your interest rate, so that's going to be R. Now, for the rest of the problem here, it says total amount after 8 years. So the time T is 8 years. And the period is compounded every 2 years. So every 1 year would be once per year. But in this case, N is going to be half of a time per year. Okay, if it was every half year, it would be twice a year. If it was every year, if it was every half year, N would be 2. If it was every year, N would be 1. If it's every 2 years, it's going to be half times per year. That's how often it is compounded, how often this is applied. So basically, I took the reciprocal of 2. All right, so we're using our formula. A equals the principal times 1 plus R over N to the power of N times T. Okay, the 1 represents 100%. So P is going to be 10,000. And that's going to be 1 plus the interest rate, which we said was 0.20, divided by N, which is divided by 1/2. And that's to the power of N times T, so it's going to be 1/2 times 8. Okay, you can do this whole thing in the calculator as is, or if you want a little shortcut, or if you want some cancellation here, 0.2 divided by 1/2 is the same as multiplying by 2, so this is going to be 0.4, and 1/2 times 8 is 4. So again, we can just do this on the calculator. Make sure you use parentheses for this exponent. Okay, and I get 38,416. And that is going to be the total amount, or the amount accumulated. So enter in the box for total amount 38,416. And they also want to know the compound interest. So if we invested 10 and we wound up with 38,416, the interest amount that accumulated was basically the total amount accumulated minus the initial amount invested. So the interest is just going to be 28,416. All right, find the total amount and total interest after 2 years if the interest is compounded annually. Okay, this is an easy one. So the principal amount is P, that's the initial amount invested. The interest rate is 0.10 because you move the decimal over 2 places. So 10% is 0.10, and that is the interest rate per year. All right, the time that the interest accumulates is after 2 years. So the time T is 2 years. And the interest is compounded annually, that's once per year. So the number of periods is just 1 per year. Basically, N is just 1. So this one's very easy. A is going to equal P times 1 plus R over N to the power of N times T. All right. Since N is just 1, we don't need this N. Dividing by 1, it doesn't do anything. And multiplying by 1 doesn't do anything. So we can cancel the N. All right. P is 2,500. Again, it's not dollars, so I'm not sure what these units are, but they are monetary. 1 plus R is going to be 1 plus 0.10. And that's to the power of T, which is just 2. And I get 3,025 for the accumulated total amount. So the total amount was 3,025. And the total interest, you take the total amount and you subtract what you initially invested. Okay, so we initially invested 2,500. So right here, it's going to be the total, 3,025, minus the initial amount, 2,500. And that is going to be $525. All right, find the compound interest and total amount after an hour if the interest is compounded every 10 minutes. All right, so the principal amount initially invested, that's P. The interest rate is 5% per minute. If you move this decimal over 2 places, that's going to be 0.05. So R equals 0.05. And that's per minute. All right, let's see. And we want the total amount after an hour. So since this interest rate is per minute, I am going to convert the total time in hours into minutes. All right. So T is the time. And they said after an hour, that's 1 hour. But this percentage is in minutes. So instead of 1 hour, I'm going to make it 60 minutes. Okay. And it's compounded every 10 minutes. So how many periods of 10 minutes are in 60 minutes? Well, that's just 6. So N is the number of periods. That's just 6. All right, I made a little mistake for N. We're actually trying to figure out how many 10-minute blocks are in 1 minute. Okay, so you actually need to take the reciprocal of 10, and that's actually going to be 1/10. Because what you're really asking for N is how many times does 10 minutes occur in 1 minute? Only 1/10. Remember in the first problem when we said compounded every 2 years, we had to take the reciprocal and it was 1/2 per year. Okay, so 10 minutes is actually 1/10 per minute. Okay, we need to do it that way because this is in minutes and we translated the time into minutes as well. So N is actually 1/10. All right, so now we can do the formula. A equals P times 1 plus R over N to the power of N times T. All right, so P is the initial amount, that's 512. And that's times 1 plus the interest rate of 0.05. And that is divided by N, which is 1/10. And that is to the power of N times T, so 1/10 times 60. Now, you can clean this up if you want to. I like to let the calculator do the work, but dividing by 1/10 is the same as multiplying by 10. So you can say 0.05 times 10 is just 0.5. And you can say 1/10 times 60 is just 6, if that helps. And I get 5,832. Notice that for the exponent, N times T, when we did that, we got 6. And that makes sense because how many 10-minute blocks are in 60 minutes? Well, that's just 6. So this is the total amount. All right, that's the total amount. And to find the compound interest, we have to subtract the amount we initially invested, which was 512. So this is going to be 5,832 minus 512. That's 0, 2, 3, 5, 5320. All right, last one. Find the compound interest and the total amount after 1 year and 1 month if the interest is compounded quarterly. Okay, this is a tricky question, and I got this wrong at first, but I'll show you what I did wrong and how to do it correctly. All right, the principal initial amount invested, of course, that equals P. And the rate of interest, 100% per year. Move the decimal over 2 places, and it's just 1. So R just equals 1. Okay, and that's per year. And compounded quarterly is 4 times per year. So basically, N equals 4. All right. And 1 year and 1 month is the time. So 1 year and 1 month is 1/12 of a year. So you would think the time would be 13/12. Okay. But this actually does not work. And I'll show you what I did. I use these numbers. Don't write this down just yet. Or you can write the formula at least. All right, we have our basic formula. A equals P times the quantity of 1 plus the interest rate divided by N times NT. All right. So I'll show you in 1 sec. P is 768. That part is correct. And that's times 1 plus R. R is the interest rate, which is just 1, divided by N, the number of times compounded. That's 4 per year. And here's where the mistake is. N equals 4, and T equals 13/12. So N times T is going to be 4 times 13/12. And this is the problem right here. If you reduce this, 12 divided by 4 is 3. You have 13/3. And this actually doesn't work. I believe this exponent will always have to be a whole number, and that's part of the reason it doesn't work. But see, when something is compounded quarterly, that's 4 times a year. So that's basically every 3 months. Okay, that's every 3 months. So it divides evenly into 1 year, but then when you add that extra 1 month, it doesn't get a chance to compound because it only compounds every 3 months. All right. So basically what you have to do, we'll do this part just for the first 1 year. All right. So for the exponent, I'm going to erase this mistake here, and we're just going to do it for 1 year. Okay. So instead of T equaling 13/12, I'm just going to let T equal 1 year. And then we'll deal with the extra 1 month at the end. So if t equals 1 year, all of this is still correct. But for the exponent, n, the number of periods is still 4 times a year. And t, the number of years, is just 1. So it's 4 times 1. So this will give you the total amount for 1 year. And then after that 1 year, we have 1 month left over. So we're going to take whatever this answer is. You can do the calculator work if you want to, but you don't need to. We're going to take whatever this answer is and add 1 month of interest. All right, so we're still using this formula here. The P is basically this part, and we're just adding 1 month of interest. So it's going to be 1 plus R, which we said was just 1. And N is the number of times a year. Since it's 1 month and there's 12 months in a year. Now, in this case, for that last 1 month, N equals 12. Okay? We're basically solving the interest for that final 1 month. All right? And there's not going to be any exponent here. If it was 2 months, if it were 2 months, I think you would divide by 6 here because there's 6 blocks of 2 months in a year. But there's no exponent on this part. So this is your equation. Okay, it's really a confusing problem because since it's compounded quarterly, it doesn't reach the compounding interval in that last month. But this is the calculation. Okay, I actually evaluate this first, hit equals, and then times parentheses. Times parentheses 1 plus 1 over 12. All right, and hit equals again. And I get 2031.25. So that is your final answer. That's the total amount. And the interest, if you just subtract the principal from that total, you do 2031.25 and subtract what you invested initially, 768. And I get 1263.25. Okay, so this was the interest, and this was the total accumulated. So in the future, most of these problems work with their basic formula, but in the future, if you get one where the end doesn't compound, just do this without the exponent, and it should work.